Before the video gets started, I want to warn you all about the audio. I had to re-record this 4 times. That means I had to practice this 5 times. Dogs, family, taking care of my nephew and cousin. There was so much this week, but I just wanted to get a video out to you guys this week. After going through my Xbox headset, through a Yeti mic, and through my phone, there's just a bunch of different little audio clips that I managed to edit together into this full video. I'm sorry some parts sound like a robot, other parts are too fast, and it was awful. I think next time I'm probably just gonna record on my phone in my car and in the middle of an empty parking lot so there is no noise. Anyway, hope you enjoy and let's get into the video. To begin with, I want to say thanks to Cody McGarth for suggesting this what if. I had a similar idea in mind, but part of this channel's intention is to build a network of people who enjoy sharing ideas and friendships. So he and I worked on this together. Every so often, I will pick an idea from you guys and I will make it into its own what if. Maybe it doesn't have to be a what if either. If I like an idea, I'll make it. As long as I can safely believe that I can build on it and entertain you guys with it. I'm not trying to steal your ideas, I simply want to give a voice to them and add mine to the choir. With that being said, thanks once more to Cody and let's begin. Part 1. For this what if, the idea is Tartarus turning away from the prophets and hearing out both the Arbiter and the Monitor. That would lead to the Brute's dissolution with the Great Journey, but for that, we're gonna take a few steps back. This video will be slightly differently formatted from the other what ifs. We begin the mission Oracle in Halo 2. This is essentially the same. As we get to the end, however, the battle between the Arbiter and the Heretic does not happen. The Monitor arrives in the middle of them talking and stupidly, the Heretic starts attacking the Arbiter before he can even give him any explanation. This time though, he doesn't. Instead, the Arbiter begins asking questions to the Monitor. All the meanwhile, Tartarus is monitoring the events. Similarly to how he arrives just after the Arbiter has defeated the Heretic, except this time, he's listening to everything Guilty Spark is saying. He gets mad because he doesn't want to believe it. He is thankful to the prophets for the opportunity to rise up from their homeworld, but listening to an oracle of the gods speak and say that those were lies. He refuses to hear anymore. He drops down from the Phantom to attack the Heretic. While the Arbiter does not stop him as he is shocked by what he's hearing, he also does not get help. Tartarus easily enough kills the Heretic, with no mercy and no mess about it. No grandiose fight either. He takes the Monitor and brings him onto the Phantom and tells the Arbiter,
"You can come with us, or you can die."
The Arbiter snaps back and hurries back onto the Phantom. Once on board, Tartarus does not let the Monitor speak. He wants to clear his mind. What this has essentially done is cast great doubt in the Arbiter's mind as well as his own. Doubt that will fester while his inner thoughts battle. Why would the prophets create this lie? Clearly, the Forerunners were gods. Only a few generations ago, the brutes were wielding sticks and stones, and now with the technology left behind by... No, it wasn't left behind, it was left for them to claim godhood alongside the Forerunners. He must have misheard the Oracle. They must have known he was listening. That's why they said these lies. The seed of doubt is pushed back in both the Arbiter and Tartarus' mind, but it is not extinguished. Several weeks later, after the events that we now know to be the mission Regret in Halo 2, the prophets changed the elites as honor guards in favor of the brutes. This begins to smell fishy once more. Yes, the prophet had died, but many times had the brutes heard the other prophets mention how reckless and how foolish Regret was. Even if the elites are weak fools, they must have done their best to protect the prophet from the demon. After the Arbiter is tasked with getting the sacred icon, which we know as the Index, Tartarus is ordered to get rid of the elite. This part goes on almost the same, but we finally have an explanation as to why the Arbiter survived. Surely Tartarus didn't actually expect the Arbiter to die from such an attack. Yes, maybe he expected him to die from the fall, but even that wasn't guaranteed. No, where things truly become different is when truth lets mercy get killed by the flood. Even Tartarus, who would happily kill his foes and eat them, he would not let one of his brutes be infected while he could not stop it. This is vile. Even the humans wouldn't let the flood have its way with their kin. The chieftain, Tartarus, makes his way to the control room. While thinking things over, he thinks to himself, this will be over soon enough and we shall ascend to gods. We can put all this behind after. But then he gets confronted by the Arbiter. That puts things into perspective for him, really. The Arbiter's willingness to put aside his hatred of humans and work with them speaks volumes. This is unparalleled in his mind, and once the Monitor starts to go on about how the Halos are only weapons of mass destruction, he starts to wane. His brutes behind him can sense his unease and begin to question his leadership. One steps up, growling through his teeth, screaming,
"Heresy!"
and Tartarus swings Guilty Spark right into his mouth, knocking the brute down with blood coming out of his forehead. The other brutes don't know if they should step up or not. Tartarus is the pack leader. Miranda takes this opportunity to get free and run to Johnson. The brutes start to move in to stop her, but Tartarus stops them. This pretty much seals the deal for them. They see this as their best chance to challenge his power, so they come at him. He tosses the monitor at one of them, and as the brute swings his arm to toss Guilty Spark aside, Tartarus brings down his hammer on the brute's head. Just then the other two jump on him to immobilize him. The Arbiter activates his sword and takes a step forward to help him. Tartarus yells back,
"No, this is my fight,"
and pushes the brutes off of him. He kicks one of them down the control room to his death and grabs the other one by the head. He lifts him up and slams him into the ground and proceeds to gouge out the brute's eyes. The brute is on the floor, growling and screaming in pain. Tartarus tells his last living brute,
"You could not see my strength. You could not see the truth. Now, you cannot see."
He lets out a powerful roar and starts stripping off his armor as he is about to throw his hammer down into the bottom of the control room when the Arbiter stops him. The Arbiter tells him,
"Use the weapons the prophets gave us to protect them and crush their skulls with it."
The brute smiles and nods. They load up into the Scarab and make their way to Tartarus' ship. He lets his crew think the humans and the Arbiter are his prisoners as he's trying to keep up the facade so the Prophet of Truth won't escape, but it's too late when they reach Tartarus' ship. He tells his forces of the broken promises and the lies, deceit, and the hatred the prophets have spread. Some brutes still refuse to believe this, similar to how some elites didn't believe it either, though this time the amount of brutes that don't believe it is greater. But with the chieftain of the brutes saying this, the rest will follow. The Great Schism isn't only the separation of the elites this time, it's the brutes, and with it go the grunts and even jackals. The grunts no longer afraid and no longer under the illusion of the Great Journey, also fraction. The jackals are even more split. Some of them see that the Covenant can no longer threaten their pirate ways, while others still see the technology of the Covenant as an issue. They are very opportunistic creatures, and once they can be sure the Covenant won't be a threat to them, they will splinter from the Sanshayum and make out with all the stolen goods they can. This fracture of the Covenant has to spread to the rest of the galaxy though. With the help of the elites, the brute civil war is ended faster than it would otherwise. This allows for a truce between brutes and elites. This will in the long term upset the humans, since the time spent with the brutes figuring out their power struggles means the elites did not rush to Earth's defense. They didn't want to split their forces between Earth, moderating the flood, and helping the brutes. Now the elites and brutes aren't friends, but they aren't actively fighting, and there's a bit of respect between some brutes and elites. Not all of them, of course, only the smarter brutes who see how devastating it would have been if the elites hadn't helped. As the news of the second part of the Great Schism spreads, some forces remained either enslaved or brainwashed by the Prophet's lies, but the Prophet of Truth still has enough forces left to take Earth. But since Tartarus was with the Prophets almost 24/7, he knows of the discovery of the portal on Earth, and if they don't get there in time, they won't be able to stop Truth from activating the rings. After the disillusionment with the Great Journey, the brutes have begun a lot of inner struggles for power. Some want to go back to the Covenant, some want to lead their own pack, and others want to return to the home world. Tartarus' forces have been severely weakened by all of this. He does not have many ships left, nor the necessary crew to use them. The brutes are very strong but not very smart. He knows even his ships would have trouble against the humans if it came to a fight. So he has an idea. Some of his brutes call him foolish, and some think it's going to get him killed. But he is the leader and he will do as he pleases. Part 2. We cut to a slip space portal opening up and only one ship comes through. It's a very damaged ship and it's transmitting coordinates so other nearby forces may rescue it. After a while, several asteroids pass by. 1 time, 2 times, and on the 3rd time, they stop alongside the ship, and from on top, several banished ships decloak. They were using several short controlled bursts of their engines to appear as regular asteroids. They believed this plan to be genius, but anyone with enough sense would have noticed that asteroids do not behave this way. The banished ships dock the Covenant vessel and begin to board it. Expecting a weakened crew and an easy target, Atriox takes his first step into an almost deserted Covenant ship. He muses to himself, wondering where the crew is. As he goes through the armory and finds it empty, he considers that someone may have already beaten them to this loot. When he realizes what is actually going on, but it's too late, he gets a report that 30 ships just jumped out of slipspace and have them surrounded. Just as those reports are coming in, he hears fighting coming from the other side of the hallway. As he starts hearing a thumping sound slowly creeping up on him, he gets his hammer ready. The brutes and elites surrounding him get ready for a fight. The thumping sound stops and several elites turn the corner to meet Atriox's group. 2 jackals are carrying a portable shield, but not like the regular ones. No, these are the big ones from Halo 3. Behind the shield, Tartarus walks slowly up to Atriox. Hammer in hand, ready. Atriox simply snarls at Tartarus and spits on the floor. Behind Tartarus are several brutes and a couple of heavily armored elites. This is nothing unexpected to Atriox. He says,
"So the prophets finally send their lapdog after me. What an honor."
He mocks Tartarus. Tartarus responds with,
"I'm not here for them.
Now this confuses Atriox.
I'm here because of them.
Atriox looks back at Tartarus.
I will not go quietly."
He responds as he raises his hammer and his forces prepare to cross the shield. Tartarus replies,
"You may not go at all."
and with a smile they both charge at each other. A fight between the 2 groups ensues. Tartarus has more forces, but the Banished are more ruthless and adept at killing. Soon enough, the battle begins to weed out the weakest, but Tartarus' forces still prevail. They outnumber Atriox's forces, and with the limited space, the Banished could not get creative. Although Tartarus' forces won over the Banished, Atriox and Tartarus themselves are still fighting, both hammers on the floor. This has divulged into a primal animalistic brawl, one which Tartarus has no hope to win as Atriox continues to pound him into the ground. As the beating continues, he hears a voice say, "You might want to hear him out." Atriox is taken aback, stunned even, as the voice spoke in the human tongue. When he looks up, Johnson has a shotgun aimed right at his forehead. Johnson smirks through his lit cigar as he puffs a cloud of smoke into Atriox's face. Before he can get up and attack the human, Johnson pumps the shotgun and says, We wouldn't want to get monkey brains all over the ship now, would we?" Atriox is even more mad, but this confusion staggers on as he sees the Arbiter. Now he's truly confused beyond words. An Arbiter, a chieftain, and a human together? What the hell could this be? Atriox gets off Tartarus, and just before he reaches down to pick up his hammer, Johnson says, "Nice and easy now. We're here to parlay." Atriox looks at the entire group and says,
"Speak."
The Arbiter comes off with it first. He tries to give Tartarus a hand to get up since he got badly beaten by Atriox, but the brute uses his hammer to help himself up. The Arbiter says,
"We need your help."
Now this makes Atriox chuckle a bit.
Or the Prophet's lapdogs not enough to deal with their master's tough meat.
He says while looking at Johnson. Tartarus, now finally stable on his feet, says,
"The Prophets lied to us all. The great journey is a lie to manipulate us.
Atriox responds with,
And you're only now seeing that?"
Tartarus gets mad, but does not challenge him. Johnson cuts him off before he can speak. "They are gonna activate the rings, and we need your help to stop them."
Wasn't this what you've always wanted, your coward race?
As he looks at the Arbiter.
And your weak followers.
As he looks at Tartarus.
"The rings will kill us all,"
says the Arbiter, and in comes 343, floating in. This time Atriox isn't shocked, but he does open up his eyes a bit wider and begins to pay closer attention, because alongside it comes in Miranda, more humans.
"Oracle, tell Heaven Halo's true purpose."
"Certainly."
Weapons of last resort, built by the Forerunners to eliminate potential flood hosts, thereby rendering the parasite harmless. After exhausting every other strategic option, my creators activated the rings. They and all additional sentient life in 3 radii of the galactic center died, as planned.
The Monitor explains the purpose of the Halo array. While Atriox isn't impressed by any means, he now sees why the group came seeking his help.
"We cannot allow the Prophet to activate the rings."
Atriox replies with,
"What do I get from helping you? I could let you all take each other out and reap in the rewards. Once you're all nothing more but a shell of your former selves."
Tartarus growls and gets ready for another fight with Atriox. But Johnson steps up. With the shotgun on his back, he simply puts a finger up to Atriox's chest and says, "What do you get? You get to keep the head of the Prophet as a trophy." Silence blankets the room for a moment, and Atriox begins to laugh and says,
"Well played. Had the Healy or Gerald taken that gamble, they would have lost. They do not have the conviction to waste their lives against a greater foe to prove a point. But you, a human, you've sent hundreds to their deaths at my hand in order to save the weak, and all of them yield in their final moments. I stand before you in all my might. You do not so much as blink.
Atriox laughs. His forces are finally starting to get up from being knocked unconscious. It seems Tartarus' forces had been holding back as to not kill the Banished, even if they themselves were being killed. Atriox finally says,
"You can count on my forces."
He turns around and looks at Tartarus once more and repeats,
"My forces."
As he walks away heading back to his ship, Miranda tells Johnson, "Go with him, he seems to like you." Johnson replies,
"Oh, I know what the monkey's like."
Part 3. Master Chief is woken up by a group of Marines. This time, there's no Johnson. This mission plays out almost exactly the same as regular, except at the end, just before the Chief loads up into the Pelican, he sees a bunch of Covenant ships arrive on Earth's orbit. He thinks to himself, things are going from bad to worse. But there's some ships he's never seen, red ones. As the next mission starts, he arrives at Crow's Nest. On the monitor, it's not Lord Hood alone. It's a four-way screen between the Arbiter, Atriox, Hood, and Tartarus. Miranda's in the background of the Arbiter's ship alongside 343 Guilty Spark, and Johnson is in Atriox's. Chief is confused, but they explain the alliances, or at least temporary alliances. They are here to work together, though this time the Covenant has less forces because of all the split between the elites, brutes, jackals, and grunts. They still had a really easy time taking Earth because the Sangheli lost some forces helping the brutes in their civil war, and that also delayed them on getting to Earth to help the humans. Which means more of Truth's ships have been able to excavate and are preparing to activate the portal to the Ark. There's no fight at Crow's Nest this time. Instead, they use Crow's Nest to group with the Arbiter, Tartarus, and Atriox. They will push on the ground through what Covenant forces are left on Savo Highway, so that they can launch an air assault on the ships surrounding the dig site. The combined forces of what's left of Earth's defenses, the elites, and both brutes' fleets is enough to overwhelm the Covenant, but since they have been on Earth a while, they have set up anti-air defenses. So that's where they come in. Chief and the Arbiter will go to one site with the AA guns through Salvo Highway, while the other two brutes go to the other site, and together, the ships will finish off the Covenant. Lord Hood comes up with this plan, thinking this is the best arrangement and his best strategy. The Arbiter and Chief steamroll through Savo Highway and get to where the fight with the Scarab in the storm. Only this time, while the Arbiter and Chief are trying to attack the Scarab, a red one comes over the mountains from where the Covenant had just come, and immediately starts opening up fire on the first one. Rockets begin to launch, barraging the Covenant Scarab, while the plasma lasers clash. This looks like something straight out of Dragon Ball Z, but the Covenant beam laser is winning. That's not enough, though, as the rockets launched from the Banished one destroy the armor of the Covenant's legs, and the front legs crumble. When the legs crumble, the laser gets redirected upwards and off the Banished one, at which point the Banished one finishes up the Covenant Scarab and blows it up. From the Banished Scarab comes Tartarus. Atriox stays inside the Scarab as it starts shooting its rockets at one of the Covenant ships. After witnessing the battle, the Chief and Arbiter push forward onto the next section with the AA gun with some help from Tartarus. We see a Chieftain versus Chieftain battle when this goofy monkey over here runs up to Tartarus. Tartarus recognizes him and tells him he's in the wrong and that he's weak. The Chieftain is angered and tries to keep fighting Tartarus, but at this point Tartarus has had enough and just overpowers him and kills him. The rest happens pretty much the same. They take down the AA gun and the portal is activated, and the Covenant goes through it. The Flood arrives, but it's more than one ship this time. It's 3, as there was less elite forces guarding Delta Halo. The mission starts out the same, except it's Tartarus waking Chief and the Arbiter up. He got pushed back, but not knocked out, when the portal was activated. This mission also plays out almost the same again, only this time we have Tartarus and Atriox helping against the Flood. Well, maybe not so much helping, as much as just keeping themselves alive. When they get to the Cortana message though, the Chief isn't very hesitant. The Brutes and Elites aren't being hostile towards Guilty Spark, and Guilty Spark was in the background of the Arbiter's ship with Miranda. The combined efforts of the Elites, Brutes, and Banished ships glass the entire continent to stop the spread of Flood. The next step is the meeting about what they should do about the portal and the Ark, but Atriox doesn't show up to the meeting. He just takes the portal to the Ark with his ships. His only goal is revenge. Because of this, Tartarus takes his forces too. Some of his forces are starting to question if they should follow him or join the Banished. He refuses to seem weak, even though Atriox beat him to a pulp. The cutscene plays out almost the same when Human and Elites discuss going into the portal. The Elites leave a few ships behind this time. Forward onto Dawn also accompanies them. Once they get there, immediately coming out of the portal, they are launched into a battle between the Covenant and Banished ships. Tartarus is not helping the Banished. He wants them to exhaust themselves and to come in and claim victory. But as soon as the elites join the fight, there's no way around it. He joins them as well. It looks like the Banished already have boots on the ground, and Atriox is hunting the Prophet and his forces. This time, Miranda suggests Chief go with Atriox and not Tartarus. They had not cooperated very well, and right now wasn't the time to have petty disagreements. The Forward Unto Dawn doesn't have to wait to land this time around. Instead, they just do, since the Banished had cleared out most of the Covenant forces near the cartographer's location. Chief lands on the Ark with a tank and rolls on through to meet Atriox at the spire. When he gets to the spire, he sees a torn apart scarab like it exploded from the inside. He has just been a step behind Atriox this whole time. But Chief finally manages to catch up to Atriox. They confront each other almost as if they are going to fight. Atriox is welcoming the challenge, almost outright challenging Chief, but Chief doesn't take the bait. He knows stopping the Prophet is #1 priority. Once they fight their way through the spire and they activate the cartographer, they aren't attacked by any air forces this time. The Arbiter and Tartarus come to pick them up as they prepare to launch an attack on the Citadel, where the Prophet is getting ready to activate the rings. The Prophet isn't given all his sermons and chanting his songs this time though. He knows he's on borrowed time. The mission covenant is almost the same once more, but this time Johnson goes with Chief while Tartarus goes to the second tower and Atriox to the third. The elites get ready to launch a full assault on the Citadel for once the shield comes down. Atriox warns the Arbiter,
If you snuff out the liar's lie, I will split your skull with this.
Atriox raises his warhammer. Tartarus interrupts him and says,
I shall feast on the betrayer's meat tonight, not you.
Tensions are uneasy as they all want their revenge on the Prophet for manipulating their races for decades, and in the case of the elites, far longer. All three groups turn off the shields protecting the Citadel, and they start making their way to truth. As soon as the shield drops, the Arbiter's forces launch an assault. But the Covenant is about to be finished off, so it gets desperate and launches all their forces to stop or at least slow down the elites. This time around, the Covenant had kidnapped a lot more humans while they were virtually unopposed on Earth. They have tortured them and broken their spirit, so they wouldn't have trouble getting them to agree to activate the Ark. Things are coming down to the wire, but the elites have not managed to push their way into the Citadel. The Scarabs are too strong, when suddenly another banished Scarab joins the fight. This one dropped on top of the other two, crushing one under its weight. The other one immediately starts shooting the banished one. The battle is not going in the banished's favor though. The Scarab pinned underneath isn't completely destroyed, so it begins damaging the banished Scarab with its top gun. The banished Scarab loses and explodes, but with the explosion it manages to take out the trapped one underneath it. Just then, the floating city of High Charity comes through a slip space portal and crashes into the Ark, dropping flood all over, just the same as the original. By now, Chief, Tartarus, and Atriox have managed to catch up with the Arbiter. The second Scarab is damaged but not done yet. Tartarus and Atriox use their gravity hammers to pull the Scarab down by the two legs most damaged. Chief runs up the hill and jumps on top of the Scarab to go in and blow it up. After that successful teamwork, they head to the Citadel, trying to hurry and mostly compete to see who would kill Truth. This isn't a friendly competition though. This is a very serious matter to them all, except Chief. Chief kinda just wants to save the day and make sure the Covenant is dead and buried. They fight their way through the forces of the Covenant left in the Citadel, and it isn't as much as in the original, but the Flood have not shown up yet either, so they don't have help from the Flood. They haven't scaled the far side of the Citadel. Once they get to the Prophet, Tartarus starts running to be first, but Atriox catches him and stops him.
Did you not learn your lesson the first time?
He asks Tartarus, all while Arbiter is getting ready to cloak and go in for the kill. Chief runs up to the console to stop the activation, and he stops the Arbiter from killing the Prophet. It's not like he gets in his way or anything, he just puts a hand on the Arbiter's shoulder. This makes the Arbiter realize what's more important now is the peace to come, not the revenge. Tartarus tries to hold Atriox back with his gravity hammer, but instead Atriox gets pissed and takes Tartarus' hammer and breaks it in half and approaches the Prophet. As he approaches, the Prophet is cowering away, but there is nowhere to run, so he decides to spew out more hatred instead.
All your pathetic races were only tools. Inefficient tools for me to use and bring about the great journey. You fools did not deserve the mercy we showed you.
But before he can continue, Atriox hits him with a gravity hammer in the stomach. The Prophet goes flying and smacks him into the floor so hard he bounces off. Atriox looks at the Arbiter and back at Truth.
Ready your blade, Arbiter.
The Prophet is lying there dying from the massive blow.
You may deliver the final blow, but I will have what was promised.
The Arbiter turns on his sword and approaches Truth, and Tartarus stands in his way, barely standing as is after the second beating Atriox gave him. Now all the bodies on the floor start twitching and turning. They have failed to notice the parasite come in and start infecting the bodies around. Tentacles rise up around them. Atriox is pissed at Tartarus and decides that even if he is a brute, that doesn't matter. He's standing in his way. But then they're all kind of shocked by what Tartarus does. He grabs Truth and starts eating him alive. The broken prophet starts screaming and writhing in pain, begging and pleading, "Mercy! Mercy!" Tartarus smiles with the prophet's flesh in his teeth and says,
The great journey waits for no one.
as a response to the prophet of truth pleading for mercy to recall how he let Prophet of Mercy die. The rest start fighting back as the flood approaches and surround them. They have to fight their way out. Tartarus finally stops eating the prophet, but there's almost no flesh left. The prophet is dead, but the head remains.
Here's your trophy.
The brutes exchange looks. Atriox says,
This is not over.
they help each other out to get out of the citadel, but once more Chief sees this little Cortana ghost and follows it. The brutes don't follow him though. They leave, but Arbiter does follow Chief. The ending of the mission is relatively the same. They unhook the halo and plan to fire it. The mission Cortana is exactly the same. The brutes have no real allegiance to Master Chief, so they don't go help him deal with the flood and retrieve Cortana. However, they do decide to storm Installation 4B, so they can clear out some of the flood and it will let the humans activate it. So Chief and Arbiter crash the Pelican as usual and make their way to the control room. Once there, they meet up with Tartarus and Atriox. They have been clearing out the flood, so no more waiting for the doors to open. Once inside, the same thing happens though. As Johnson goes to activate the halo, Guilty Spark fries him up. Tartarus pulls the monitor with his gravity hammer and slams him into the ground. Atriox brings his hammer down on the monitor and splits him apart into hundreds of little pieces. Tartarus' hammer is barely working as is now that it's been broken in half. The forces of the brutes, elites, and banished are waiting alongside the Forward Unto Dawn for the Fort to escape. The Gravemind realizes he has nothing left to lose, and if anything, it might be able to infect one of them and let them escape to continue the flood. The escape out of the control room is a lot more difficult this time around, since the flood are all over trying to stop them or infect them. We get a halo run in the end though. This time it happens to be on a banished revenant, so it's red and instead of a plasma turret, it has a gauze hog turret. Cortana is impressed by how the banished managed to merge human and Covenant technologies so easily. When they get to the Forward Unto Dawn, they make the jump and they almost miss. The vehicle is carrying an incredible amount of weight. Chief jumps off the turret to see if the others made it as well. He plugs in Cortana and the ship starts to move. The Arbiter runs up to the front of the ship like usual. Once that happens, the tank starts to roll back and the two brutes jump in to stop the tank from hitting them. Once Chief is out of the way, the brutes flip the tank over their heads and they reach for their hammers. Atriox knocks the Fist of Rook from Tartarus' hands and uses his own hammer to hit Tartarus. He looks down on him and says,
The prophet was not yours to kill.
The ship has fully turned vertical by now, and Tartarus slides down trying to hold on to something, but with no chance. He falls out of the back of the Forward Unto Dawn as it crosses the slip space portal. Chief and Atriox exchange looks, but they're both hanging on to avoid falling out. All the ships cross the portal, but the Forward Unto Dawn is the last one. Once more, it splits in half, and both Atriox and Chief are left stranded on board the Forward Unto Dawn. Cortana prepares a special cryopod for the brute, as he wouldn't be able to fit in the pods usually. He lays both gravity hammers next to his pod and tells Master Chief,
I expect those to be there when I wake.
Chief gives Cortana his little,
Wake me when you need me.
The end is basically the same, except now Atriox is on board the Forward Unto Dawn alongside Master Chief. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to Cody. Once again, sorry for the microphone changes. I'm hoping by next week it will all be figured out. Leave your ideas for any other videos in the comments. I love interacting with you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
The brutes, not the elite, shall be the prophet's escort.